Is this the biggest trap that's set in front of musicians whenever they make that jump from hobbyist to professional? I think it might be. What is the big trap here? I think that a lot of people think that fame is the goal of becoming a professional musician. Like, I get it. People want to be famous. You know, they want that recognition. They want people to say, like, oh yeah, when people think of this genre, I want them to think of me. And I understand that. People want that recognition and, you know, sort of legacy that they can leave. But what if focusing on fame was a guaranteed way to kill your fortunes? And what do I mean by that, right? So let me tell you a very quick story to start this off. I had a singer named Jesse who unfortunately passed away. And I believe in my heart of hearts that he passed away as a symptom of the pursuit of fame. When he was trying to pursue fame, he focused on certain things. Now think about this for a second. We were on the back patio one night and he's sitting there and he asks me, Dax, if you could be famous or wealthy as a musician, but you couldn't be one or the other, which would you rather be? And I said, I'd rather be wealthy, because if I'm wealthy, I don't have to work a 9-to-5 job. I can create the music I want to create when I want to create it. I just have more freedom. And he said, you know, I'm the exact opposite, man. I would rather have the fame and the recognition. I want to be remembered. And at first I was like, oh, we just have a different view of it. But as I saw that belief manifest itself in real life, in his own life, I saw how it destroyed him. I saw now he had certain visions about who he was. He was thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough looking to be famous. So I've got to sort of overcompensate. You know, me as just a person is not exciting enough to be famous. So I have to go do the things that my heroes did, which got him hooked on hard drugs, unfortunately. And so after trying to follow in the footsteps of all these famous people and doing the things that the famous people did to be famous, he ended up someone who was addicted to hard drugs, not famous, not able to really write music the way he was able to write it. And then unfortunately, he had a relapse, which made him like move out of state. And then when he moved out of state, he got in a car crash because he wasn't used to the roads where he moved. And so you could say, well, Dax, he didn't necessarily die from fame. Here's the reality, having lived with that person for many years. I saw what that mindset did to his brain. I saw what it got him to focus on. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how fame is actually the biggest killer of not only musicians' fortunes, but their mindset in their own lives. It's really, really tragic. So stay locked in and let's learn not only why fame is a fortune killer, but what to focus on instead so that you can actually start making some progress towards those fortunes. Now, I get it. Some people have different definitions of what a fortune is. I know for a lot of musicians, a fortune would just be making a livable income from your music. That would be a fortune for most musicians. So when I say fortune, I'm being kind of loose with it. I don't necessarily mean that you're going to make $1 million kind of fortune. I mean, you're going to make some good money, right? But if we pursue fame, that's going to be a killer for that. So here's the one thing that we need to start with. When we pursue fame and not pursue freedom, we focus on certain things. And what you focus on expands and attracts. Now again, it attracts you to it, not the other way around. None of that law of attraction BS where it's like, I'm just going to sit here and focus on something and then it will attract to me. No, that's not how the law of attraction works. You focus on something and it draws itself to you, right? Or I'm sorry, you draw yourself to it. I said that backwards. So what happens is when musicians focus on fame, they start to look at all the different ways that they can become famous. So instead of thinking about what are the frameworks that I need, what are the things that are going to create a stable music business so that I can actually have some freedom, instead of focusing on that, when you focus on fame, you start thinking, how can I get attention? How can I get validation? How can I get masses of people to look at me? And when that's the goal, that is the wrong focus. And what, again, just because you focus on it doesn't mean all of a sudden fame is going to come to you. It means fame is going to be pulling on you. And sometimes the ways that fame is going to be pulling on you, the things it's going to ask of you to get the fame, you're definitely not going to want to do those things. P. Diddy. So if you look at how people can weaponize fame and the pursuit of fame against the people who want it, you very quickly start to reconsider whether you're pursuing fame as the end goal or if fame is a byproduct of something, right? I think realistically, when we get fame the right way, fame is a byproduct of us pursuing something more valuable than validation, right? It comes from us pursuing something where we connect with our audience. We create music that really resonates with people and potentially gets them to heal or process trauma or overcome trauma. Like, when we're able to do things like that and actually own our music business and own the ways that we can create that impact, now we're starting to build freedom. But if you have fame and you don't own your music business, that's slavery. Ask Prince. That's what he did. He wrote slave on the side of his face, went out and did a whole entire tour because he was protesting how his record company was treating him. Basically like a slave, because Prince had all the fame, but none of the ownership, right? And so what happens when you pursue fame and not freedom, you're going to diminish and overlook the ownership because you're going to be so focused on the fame that you just want the attention and the validation, right? And the fancy cars and the fancy whatever, but we're not focusing on whether that's legitimately real, whether that's sustainable, scalable, something that we could do for a long period of time, and not just a flash in the pan kind of thing. So we have to change our expectation. Focus, I know this is going to sound, for some musicians, this is going to make them cringe, but once they realize what I'm truly saying, it's going to open their minds up like they've never seen it before. Don't focus on fame, focus on fortune. And people say, whoa, Dax, like I was always told, don't focus on the money. Don't focus on the money. And I'm like, yeah, you were told that by people who either A, did not have any money, or two, had the money and did not want you to get any of the money. That's the truth, y'all. The reason you're told not to focus on money is because you've been convinced and sold the idea that it's a bad thing to focus on money. However, what did we learn about the real law of attraction? The real law of attraction is what we focus on draws us to it. So when I was 16 years old and I was living in my parents' house as a 16-year-old, I looked around and I said, how do you guys pay for everything? Like, how much does this house cost to keep the electricity on and the heat on and all that kind of stuff? Like, how much does this all cost? And I started realizing, like, I've got to start earning money. How am I going to earn that much money? Right? And so at first people may say, like, Dax, you're focusing too much on money. But guess what happened? As I focused on earning a living, the opportunities to which that I could actually achieve that started to become more available and prevalent in my brain. Just like when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you get on the road and you're like, why does everyone have this car? Because you're so focused on this new car that you got that your brain is looking for it everywhere. So when I was focusing on getting fortunes, focusing on earning some income as an artist, that's what I mean when I say fortunes. Again, I just want to clarify because I know some artists are sensitive when I say that kind of stuff. When I started focusing on the fortunes, I started seeing the pathways to develop the fortunes. When you focus on fame, you don't see that. You focus on and expand the opportunities that you see to get validation, to get people to pay attention to you, but not necessarily find what you do valuable, right? You see the difference there? So you have to change your expectation. Focus on the fortune, but don't expect the fortune. You understand the difference there? Like, you can focus on something without expectation of its return, right? So you can focus on fortunes so that you can see what are the systems that create wealth? What are the systems that create money to flow into certain artists' hands, and the lack of these systems prevent money from flowing into other artists' hands? How can I find that and focus on it and build that framework in my own business? See, but if you're not expecting, oh, I just do what they do and then I'll be a millionaire, right? See, that's a bad expectation. That really kind of leads me to the second issue that I talk about a lot, unfortunately, because it's still a prevalent problem, is expectation, right? Expectation, just like the pursuit of fame creates the wrong focus, so therefore we're being pulled to the wrong things, having the wrong expectation creates the wrong frame, right? It creates this idea that when I expect something, that's because I viewed the world with a specific frame. And when the world did not match up to the frame that I had created, I get frustrated, I get resentful, I get angry, right? You cannot do this to yourself. If you go into, let's say, a piece of content, whether you've spent 30 minutes on it or 3 hours on it, you have to have the same level of expectation of that piece of content. Whether you wrote a song and it took you a week or it took you a year, you have to have the same expectation of that song performing well as you do with any other song. Because expectations can blind us when we actually start to make progress. Because, again, we're focused on the wrong things, we've got the wrong frame, Tell me how you're going to recognize when you've actually achieved a good goal if you're not focused on it, right? And this happened to one of John Mayer's big friends, is he got 2 million records sold in an era where selling 2 million records was like selling 10 million records. And then he was talking to him, and John Mayer's friend is like, dude, I'm miserable. And John's like, how can you be miserable? You just did a thing that most musicians dream they could do. Why are you upset? And he's like, oh, well, I expected it to do better. You see, the expectation was set in such a way that even though he did something 99.9% of artists can't do right now or haven't done, he was still unfulfilled because the expectation was that he was supposed to do better than that. Think about what record labels do to artists once they've had a success. You can have an artist come to a record label, bring a smash hit that gets 10 million streams or 10 million purchases or whatever. If that next single the artist puts out gets 9,999,099 streams or purchases, the record label will look at that artist and be like, well, yeah, this song failed, right? Because it's supposed to go up every time. They expect every time for it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, think about that. What kind of expectation now is the artist setting on themselves every time they put out a piece of music? This thing's got to be the one that gets me out. This has got to be the one that gets me to escape. This has got to be the one that frees me. When it turns out, that mindset is actually what makes you a slave. That's actually what imprisons you to the people in the industry that take advantage of the people who just pursue fame. Because the expectation is, well, listen, we've given you all the tools, so if you're not growing, clearly something's wrong with you and your songs. It couldn't be the market or the timing or any of that kind of stuff. It's about you and your ability as a songwriter. You know, that sophomore record slump is due not in fact to the fact that the second record of any breakout artist is not as good as the first one, but because of the expectation the industry has for that second release. They say, oh, your first release did good, so clearly you're more famous now, so your second release has got to kill it, right? In the era of CD sales, that kind of makes sense, but realistically, in today's era, that makes no sense. So when it comes down to expectations, we have to have a proper view of our expectations. I don't care if it's a song you've been working on for a year, a piece of content that you've been working on for a few hours, or whatever. Everything that you put out there is data and nothing else, okay? It's not evidence of how good your music is. It's not, you know, a judgment or a critique on you as a person or a songwriter or any of that kind of stuff. It's just purely data. So when I go out and post a piece of content, or my clients go post a piece of content, I'm very diligent to make them realize, like, listen, we're just trying to figure out what angle we need to hit to really attract our dream fans. But I guarantee you the first few or dozen angles are not going to work. I mean, if they do, that's awesome. And I had some people that figured out like within a dozen or so. But sometimes it takes more than that. You got to really just hit all these angles to figure out what is that thing that my dream fan is going to resonate with. And if you have expectations for every time you try something for it to be the one that finds the audience and everything, you're going to burn out. But if you're just like, I'm going to put this piece of content out there, not, okay, I'm going to put this piece of content out there and now this is going to be the one. Everyone look back. Here it goes. It's about to explode. No. We don't do it like that. We just say, I'm going to put a piece of content out to see if, is this the angle that the fans need to hear to really resonate? Let me try it. It wasn't. Okay, well, let me try another one. Maybe let me try a different angle. Okay, that didn't work. Let me try a different angle. And notice that I'm not sitting there saying, okay, this is going to be the one. Dang it, it didn't do it. Okay, now this is going to be the one. Dang it, it didn't do it. If you do that to yourself, good luck, because you're going to get like a dozen videos in and you're just going to be so burnt out and beating yourself up that it's going to be impossible to create good content. However, if you remove the expectation from it and you just say, it's data. I'm just like a business person trying to figure out the data that makes my music business work. I know, thinking like a business person for musicians, they resist that sometimes. But really, that's something that's required. Whether you try, like, thinking about business is required no matter what situation you're in the music business. Like, it's just a requirement. So we've got to get over that real quick and stop thinking those things like I talked about in one of my previous videos of like, no, I'm just a musician. It's like, no. If you're going to be just a musician, then you're just a hobbyist, okay? But if any part of you is trying to become a professional in the sense that you're earning side income from your music or more, then you absolutely need to focus on business. It's an absolute mandatory thing. So, okay, we've got a couple ideas, but what's the solution? Okay, I've talked about pursuing fame gives us the wrong focus. Pursuing the expectation of fame gives us the wrong frame of our music business, and it just leads to burnout and frustration and envy and resentment. But what's the solution? What do we actually focus on? What do we actually start to increase our awareness about so that we can actually start to get progress, start to look at the things that matter? So the first thing is you've got to look at freedom as more important or more valuable than fame. Okay, I'll say that again. Freedom beats fame, okay? Because some people are like, yeah, I would love to be famous like in another part of the world, but not in my home country. You know, that way, see, really what they're meaning is I want a huge audience that gives me a ton of streaming income, but I don't want the responsibility of actually being famous in my home country. So what are they really wanting there? They're actually wanting freedom from the fortune, right? Now, you pursue freedom over fame, but freedom comes from having fortunes. Okay? So having income that you can put aside, having income that you've earned, that's what leads to freedom. So people get mad at me when I say, you got to focus on the money. You got to focus on the business. They're like, Dax, I was always told growing up that you're not supposed to think about money. You're not supposed to talk about money and talk about religion and politics instead of just being taught how to talk about religion and politics, how to talk about money, how to view money. Right? We neutered ourselves by saying we're not supposed to talk about those things instead of just being courageous, facing these concepts and having adult conversations about it. That's my opinion on the matter. But we have to look at it like this. Okay, I don't want to just be famous. I need freedom. Okay, because that's really what I want. I want to be able to write music all day and the bills are paid. That's freedom. Well, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you have enough money coming in so that you can pay the bills, right? So when you focus on earning money as a musician, at first you're going to have some mental blocks. You're going to have some people maybe telling you, oh, don't focus on that. Don't focus on the business. Just focus on writing good songs. I can't tell you how much I despise that advice. Not because I think it's a bad idea to write the best songs you can. To me, it's redundant advice. Like, think about it for a second, for even half a second. Most musicians that are asking the question, how do I get my music out there? How do I grow? Are not doing it because they spent 5 minutes writing a song. They put it out on Spotify after writing it 5 minutes ago, and they're like, where are my fans? The idea when you tell people, well, just focus on writing better songs, that's the person who needs to hear that advice. The person who spent 5 minutes writing their song and just put it up on Spotify. The person who's been at this for 10 years or longer, or 5 years or longer, or even a few years, and is writing the best possible songs that they can manage as an artist, telling them to write better songs is unhelpful. Because that's like someone who is drowning going up to them and saying, well, you just need to breathe, man. Just breathe some air. It's like, no kidding. Now, what do you think I'm trying to do right now? Maybe give me some techniques to swim. You know what I'm saying? That's what focusing on business is figuring out, okay, how do I actually swim? Right? Writing good songs, that's coming up for air, right? And so most people, it's like, yeah, just keep getting more air. It's like, okay, I can only do that for so long when I'm not around anything that could support me. Maybe I need to figure out how to get to like a boat or the edge of the pool or something. That's learning business. That's learning skills that help you progress and move. But if you're just stuck there, you know, in the middle of the water and people are just like, just breathe. Just find a way to get some more air into your lungs and you'll be okay. You would get so angry and frustrated at them, which is what most of these music educators keep doing to artists, and it just bugs the crap out of me. It's like, stop telling musicians that. We get it already. That's like telling a basketball player, hey, you know you need to just put the ball in the hoop more times than your opponent does, right? And if you put that ball in that hoop more times than your opponent puts the ball in the hoop, therefore you'll win the game. You're like, dude, I get it. You just described basketball. Like, that's not helpful to make me a better basketball player. Show me how to dribble. Show me how to shoot better threes. Show me how to have better elbow alignment to the goal and all this kind of stuff. Like, give me some techniques. That's what focusing on money in the business side will do for you. It gives you the skills and the techniques so that you can attract people in marketing. It gives you the skills so that you can sell people without being some kind of pushy infomercial salesman type of person, right? You start learning the skills that actually matter because you're focusing on what matters. So, focus on freedom. Think to yourself, all right, how do I create more freedom as a musician. I'll give you an example. I was working at Guitar Center, which was actually, like, all things considered, for a 9 to 5, not too bad. You know, I was around music all the time and was making like $20 an hour. It's not a terrible gig, right? But I was thinking to myself, okay, how can I have more freedom so that I can create the music I want and actually start getting results as a musician? What did I have to do? I had to actually focus on earning income outside of my job, right? So once I focused on it, I started building those systems. I started getting attracted to learning business and entrepreneurship. Then I got my first clients that allowed me to leave my 9 to 5 job. Then I started getting more income from my music. And I was like, okay, now I can start making, choices about my art and having freedom with this because I'm not pinned down, right? I've had many friends who are in bands that they've wanted to go on tour. They got this cool tour opportunity, but the bass player can't go because his boss said, we're not allowing you to leave your 9 to 5 for this tour. What the heck, right? That's not freedom, right? That's restriction. When I was in that position where I was able to quit my 9 to 5 and make money just from music-related income, now I get to choose. Now I have the freedom to decide, I'm going to write some music today. I'm going to focus on my business. I'm going to do all these things. Now you have to be more diligent. You have to have more discipline if you're going to do this. But hey, with great power comes great responsibility. So fame fades, but ownership compounds. So as you focus on building a music business that actually generates new fans, turns those fans into paying supporters, you're building ownership in a business that actually generates revenue, okay? Now, if you have the goal of one day getting signed with the label because all your favorite artists are signed with labels and you're thinking, well, that's clearly what I have to do to get successful. You don't start there, and neither did they. What you do is you build up your independent music business systems to a point where now you're making the fortunes, you're making a good living from your music, and now you have leverage in your ownership because you own this music business that's generating $10,000 a year, $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, whatever. So when a label comes up to you and says, yeah, we're going to give you this really crappy deal where we take all of your ownership and you get like 1%, enjoy, what's going to happen? Well, the artist has leverage. They can say, go kick rocks. I've got an audience that already supports me. I don't need your money. I'll go find a label who's willing to give me a better deal and we'll grow together. How's that sound? But if you're in the position where you have no ownership, you have no business, you have no systems that are predictably bringing you in new fans and turning those fans into revenue, labels won't touch you with a 10-foot pole, right? So if you've been thinking to yourself, well, I'll just have the labels take care of all that stuff. They won't even touch you with a 10-foot pole unless you've built this stuff for yourself, okay? So this idea that I don't have to focus on the money, somebody else is going to take care of that for me, is a completely outdated fallacy, okay? If you really want to start getting people like labels to pay attention to you, and I'm not a huge label guy personally, like even if I got to the point where I could sign up with a label, I've been signed twice, by the way, but if I was getting signed by like Atlantic or Warner Brothers or whatever, I don't even know if I would take it if I was at the point where they're asking me. I'm like, if they're asking me, clearly I'm doing something right. So why would I, it depends on what your aspirations and your goals are. Some people want to get to that $1 million+ a year place. And so if that's the case, yeah, you might want to work with a label to scale to that point. But at that point where you're able to scale from that point you're scaling from, you'll have made so much money because you actually focused on the business, the marketing and the selling, that you're kind of indifferent. Like, oh, I could, get with this label, but it's not going to make or break my career. Which most musicians, they get offered a label contract when they're in no position to sign one. They're like, oh, this could be the thing that jumpstarts my career. Oh my God. They get all Mickey Mouse on it. Oh my God. But like, that's not what's going to change your career. What's going to change your career is you focusing on marketing, you focusing on selling, and getting over any weird trepidations that you may have about those two things. That's the truth, right? What's not going to help you is saying, how can I become more famous? How can I get more validation from other people to determine my own worth? That's not going to help you. That's going to lead you, and that's going to leave you worse off than when you started. But if you focus on making an impact, you focus on writing music that touches people's lives, you focus on packaging that music and finding the angle that you have to package it so that those fans really resonate it with the deepest, and find a way to actually offer them something they would buy. If I'm a gamer, you know, your audience is mostly gamers, offer them some video game accessories that have your branding on it, right? If they're country and they work on the ranch, you know, give them some boots or some belt buckles or a flannel shirt that's got your branding on it. You know what I'm saying? If they work in construction, you know, give them work gloves that are brand, like, you know what I'm saying? Find out who your fans that you're trying to get are. What do they normally buy in their day-to-day lives? Focus how you can create branded versions of that, so you use the music to attract them. Then you use, well, I should say the music and the marketing, which to me those are kind of the same thing nowadays. You use that to bring them in and build the bond. And then you can sell them something they actually desire to purchase anyway, but now it's got this cool branding from one of their favorite artists. This is extremely powerful because now you're like not going against the normal inertia that people have in their buying decisions. Let's say you have people in your ideal fan base that are consistent coffee drinkers. I'll tell you something about coffee drinkers. They're diligent. They will make sure they have their coffee. Come hell or high water, they're going to get it. They're going to get caffeinated, right? So what can you do to ensure that you have a high revenue product for these people? I don't know, maybe make your own custom coffee as a band that's really good so that they want to keep buying it every single week, every single month because they've ran out. They got to get their next stock up. You see how you can create something that is something they already desire to buy? There's already inertia in them just buying this on a regular basis. Instead of trying to say like, hey, listen, I know you're a coffee drinker, but I just created this tea. You know, now all of a sudden all the coffee fans that you have are like, I don't want this tea product. I'm a coffee drinker. That tea, that's wussy stuff. This ain't the UK. That's how we talk about it in America. We're like, tea? Don't give me that sissy crap, which by the way, I love tea. I'm from the South, man. I love sweet tea, but we went to Ireland, and that's where I actually proposed to my wife. So I love Ireland. I've got great memories there. But I love, dude, there was this place, I think it was right outside the Temple Bar. It was a hotel. They had the best, like, ham and eggs with just black tea with some cream and sugar that you've ever had in your entire life. So shout out to Ireland for probably having the best food I've ever had in all of Europe. Yes, it was better than France. And UK, that's really funny. All my UK fans are going to be so pissed. They're like, hey, we have tasty food. We put beans and cornbread together. You know. I'm sorry, guys. Just put some salt on it. Like, for the love of God. Just you know, but I'm coming from America where everything is just like doused in salt and sugar. And so my palate is completely destroyed. So you can just blame me and the FDA for that one. But anyway, to get back on point, you want to build ownership, because as you build ownership in this little music business, right now you'll get to a point where you own this little music business. You know, you're making music and you're making like $100 a month. And guess what? You're going to be pumped as heck about it, right? Then as you grow, that will compound. You'll start making $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month. That will compound. But fame fades, and fame produces diminishing returns, so that it's not this big exponential growth curve. It's like a hill and then a valley. That's what fame usually looks like. And that valley can sometimes be worse than the valley you came from before you were famous. Okay? So fame is the big fortune killer. Stop trying to pursue it. Don't expect it. And heck, don't even expect fortunes. But focus on the systems that create it. Okay? Because if you focus on what other musicians are doing that is actually producing results for their music business, you'll start seeing patterns. You'll start seeing the things that have worked not just in the music business, but work across industries. Okay? And once you start to focus on that, once you start to learn that, I guarantee you'll start to progress in your music business, because you'll be focusing on the right things, you'll have the right frame about it, and you'll actually own your music business, as opposed to giving away the real golden goose so that you can get validation from people that will forget you in a month, right? So I hope you got a ton of value from this video. If you did, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, all that kind of good stuff. We have a free group that you can join where we're talking about more in-depth, you know, solutions to people's problems in their music business. So if that's something you want to join the public group. I mean, it's a private group, but you know, you have to apply to join. So I'll check it out, make sure you're a good fit, and get you into the group. It's totally free. Click the link in the description for that. And also, if you'd like some one-on-one help implementing those marketing and selling systems into your music business, click the link in the description to apply for a free one-on-one coaching call to see if we'd be a good fit to actually help you inside of your music business. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in another video inside of Musicians Ignite. Take care.